Hey, happy Sunday, everybody. Hope we had a wonderful weekend and hopefully a warm one. I know it's been super cold out there, but some good news right off the bat here for you is a big time warm up is on the way for much of the country. Really starting today, going through this week, we will continuously, slowly, and gradually get warmer, but that will have some downsides. And unfortunately, all that's really going to begin as soon as today with a big time ice storm, likely getting underway through Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, and eventually working up through Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana, and maybe even parts of Ohio before all is said and done here and that warm air finally takes over. Now, we will also have a big time flooding concern going into this week. A lot of Pacific moisture getting flooded in through the country and multiple rounds of storms likely to work on through, bringing potentially more than half a foot of rain for some folks over the next 5 days or so. So all of that's really going to be the big theme of today's video. Now, if you haven't already subscribed, definitely consider doing so. Like the video if you like it, and of course, comment, let me know where you're watching from, and if you're seeing anything cool out there, definitely submit some pictures with the photo submission link in the description below. And as always, of course, just want to thank you all for coming back. It means the world to me, and again, you're really what allows this channel to keep on going day in and day out. I did also want to quickly mention, I know the videos have been getting uploaded a little bit later than normal the past couple of days. I've just been catching up on some sleep, to be honest with you, which has been great, and I feel a lot better. So tomorrow, starting Monday, I'm going to get back into the groove of things and hopefully try to start getting up a little bit earlier again and get these videos out a little bit sooner than, the noon time frame. So just something to look out for there. Alrighty, with that said, let's go ahead and jump on into it because, again, we do have a pretty good amount to talk about here today, and you can tell on satellite imagery, all of that is getting going already out here in the desert southwest. We've got a big-time kind of cluster of storms here with low pressure beginning to slowly strengthen. This eventually will work eastbound and kind of cut up through the country, bringing that ice threat, that rain threat, as well as even some snow for some folks. And we'll talk about who that is that could get some snow here before all is said and done. Now, outside of there, currently in the east, we still have relatively nice weather today. It has been obviously very cold. Last night was probably the coldest night of the year so far for some folks here in the southeast. The good news, though, again, that will also be the coldest we see through at least the next week or two before getting into February. We'll see what February holds in the temperature department. But again, this big-time warm-up is going to make 70 feel a lot more like 80 here for a lot of folks here by the time we get into this week, just because of how cold it was for the past 7 days or so. Now, taking a look at radar imagery, watches, warnings, advisories out there. Again, precipitation-wise, we're all quiet really east of the Mississippi, but you'll notice we definitely have some active spots on the map here, specifically right in the heart of the country here through Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, and Kansas, where we have a lot of winter weather advisories and even some embedded winter storm watches, winter storm warnings, and ice storm warnings here. Kind of in this part of the map from sections of north and, excuse me if I can think of directions here, northwestern Arkansas and into eastern Oklahoma. Again, could definitely see the brunt of the ice out of this, but as you'll notice, due to these winter weather advisories, that ice is going to stretch well up into even Illinois and even back into sections as far south as Texas. Could see enough ice to cause travel concerns here throughout the next 24 to 48 hours or so. Now, outside of there, taking a look at the West Coast, we do have plenty of watches, warnings, and advisories as well for a lot of mountain snow on the way, as well as a lot of valley rain. So we could see some flooding here into the Bay Area and into the Sacramento area of California. Again, rounds of precipitation likely on the way. And we're even seeing that some of that precipitation already. You'll notice showing up on radar here some rain along the coast here through Portland and up through Seattle, and even some rain down into the Four Corners region. Raining in Vegas, back down towards San Diego, Tucson, Arizona, and even El Paso getting in on some rain. So again, not many times of the year that we see rain in these places, but today is one of those days. So definitely get out there and enjoy it. If you live in the desert, I'm sure seeing rain is almost kind of like seeing sunshine in other parts of the country. So, kind of get out there and enjoy some of that. Alrighty, so let's kind of talk about the overall pattern. I think the general setup that we're looking at, it's important to break that down for you before we go into kind of the in-depth future radar and kind of things in that department. So let's go ahead and start by looking at our 500 millibar height wind map. This does a great job at showing where our air is coming from. And right now, where it's coming from is the Pacific Ocean. We have a very strong Pacific jet here. You'll notice that on the left-hand side of this map, this big area or this corridor of very strong winds. This is blowing, again, a lot of moist and mild Pacific air into the country. and has been doing so for a day or so now. But as this cold air that's in the east slowly kind of starts working east, and that high pressure gets centered off the coast, and that Pacific jet continues to ramp up, we're going to get very strong flow out of kind of the same directions here. That is going to lead to a big time warm up of air, as well as a big time convergence of the air at the surface, and that's going to lead to a very warm and wet pattern through much of this week. Now, another map we can look at, one you're probably a little more familiar with here on the channel, is the 500 millibar height anomaly map. This does a great job, again, of showing us where we have troughs and ridges, and this is going to be a pretty common pattern this week. A big trough kind of here down through the four corners, and then a even bigger ridge through much of the east coast. So what this is going to allow is a big area of divergence aloft kind of here on this side of the trough, and we're going to get multiple rounds of low pressure to form in that diverging side here, and that's going to lead to rounds of precipitation and low pressure crossing the country, and again just bringing a very wet pattern. Now also, again, because of this ridge here flexing, we're going to have wind coming out of the south, kind of working in tandem from the west and the east here, and again, that's going to lead to a big time warm up and well above average temperatures for what we're used to in January. And as I mentioned earlier, it's been so cold. If we get temperatures 20 degrees above what they should be, on top of the 20 to 30 degrees below what they should be that we're seeing right now, that's going to be about a 50-degree temperature swing here in high temperatures for some folks. And that is, really going to feel quite impressive here for some people. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about this a little bit, region by region, breaking down this overall storm threat. We'll start out west. Again, there's not a specific storm right now. It's just kind of rounds of storms here, and it's a pretty easy setup to identify here. Rain in the valleys and the lower elevations, especially along the coast of Washington, Oregon, and Northern California, with snow further inland into the higher terrains of the Rockies, and that will continue throughout the next couple of days. So I'm just going to kind of breeze on through this. This is getting into this afternoon and evening. You'll notice another big wave of moisture here moving on into Northern California and into Oregon with that strong low pressure there, and still seeing snow into those higher terrains of the Rockies at the same time. Now, moving this further ahead into overnight tonight, by the time we're waking up tomorrow, another big round of precipitation, this time through really north and south through the west coast, from Washington down through even San Diego and LA, getting in on some of that rain. And again, mountain snow continuing here. Same story Monday, rain working on through, showers of rain and snow showers as well in the higher elevations. And that same general pattern really just continues here throughout the next couple of days. Now, I do think going into Tuesday, we get a bit of a lull back into the coastline of California up through Oregon and Washington. Not nearly as widespread of rain, but still very widespread snow and rain into the kind of central part of the Rockies here. Again, snow in the mountains, rain in the valleys here, and that continues throughout the day Tuesday before you'll notice going into the middle of this week, another big blob of moisture back out showing up on the map here. That should work in by the time we get into Wednesday afternoon and into our Thursday. All right, now take a look at rainfall totals out here. Again, it's going to be enough that we have some concerns here with, some places out here getting multiple inches of rain through California, Oregon, and Washington. Not widespread flooding, but definitely some isolated spots here, even down into Arizona and the Las Vegas area. Again, going to see some of that rain pile up here, and we'll have to watch for any flooding potential, but just know, in general, it's going to be a rainy stretch here. And this goes out through about overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, and we'll add even more rain onto these totals here later on in the week. All right, snowfall totals, again, going to be something we need to watch here. This is, again, going to be very terrain-driven. The past couple snowstorms we've had, some of the lower elevations have gotten in on the action. This time around, not so much. Again, very mild Pacific air being flooded in with this precipitation. So you're really going to need to be kind of pretty high up in the peaks here, excuse me, to kind of see some of that snow. And the same story goes down for the southern Rockies here, especially the Sierra Nevadas. I think is going to be a place that really cashes in on likely a couple feet of snow here on those higher elevations. And I'm sure the ski resorts out here are going to be happy to hear it. Again, throughout at least the next 48 hours is what this shows, but even beyond that, likely more snow than this to kind of pile up in some of those higher peaks. All right, let's move out east now and talk about this anticipated ice storm that is likely to begin as soon as later this afternoon and this evening and go throughout the next couple of days. Now, the overall setup right now, we've got high pressure anchored over much of the eastern half of the country here, that leading to that very cold air. This is that air mass that has just led to very cold temperatures last night. I know where I'm from in upstate South Carolina, the airport there got down to 8 degrees. So it's usually about once a year we get temperatures this cold through the southeast, and this morning was definitely that morning. And luckily, we're going to kind of get rewarded for our ability to get through this cold stretch again as we move this ahead into time. Now, as we go into overnight tonight, and about the time the sun is going down here closer towards the midnight hour, watch out here towards Texas and Oklahoma. All of that troughing that's happening out in the Four Corners is going to allow for some low pressure to form here, and we've got a storm system on our hands. Likely just rain for southern Texas through the Rio Grande, from Houston back towards San Antonio and back through El Paso, but it's up through the DFW area into the Red River Valley. We could see some ice break out tonight here with some light freezing rain showers, that likely continuing through the overnight hour, picking up in intensity there, again, especially into eastern Oklahoma. And by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning, we've got a really kind of impressive shield of ice here through eastern Oklahoma, western Arkansas, and right along the Red River Valley. Now, the good news with this ice setup, I know the past couple of ice storms we've had, it has happened and then that ice has stuck around for a while. Well, again, as I've been talking, that warm air is on the way. You'll notice this high pressure here is slowly working off to the east. That trough is slowly working east as well, so that is going to allow flow around the two to kind of work in tandem here and bring that warm air very quickly northward. So, again, a lot of us are going to see ice, but by the time we get a couple hours after the ice storm begins, or at least 12 to 24 hours after, that warm air quickly works in, and we've just got good old-fashioned rain. And you'll notice that here, by the time we get into Monday afternoon or later in the morning, we're already changing back over to rain here into eastern Oklahoma and sections of western Arkansas, while the ice itself is moving further up towards the St. Louis area and into central Missouri. Now, moving this further ahead into time here, going into our Monday afternoon and evening, again, now we're all rain through just about all of Arkansas, Oklahoma, Texas, albeit heavy rain at that here down through southern Texas through the Houston area. Definitely need to watch for some flooding down there. And rain even working now pretty well up into even the middle part of Missouri here, but the icing concerns now moving back through Illinois, Indiana, and sections of southern Michigan here through our Monday afternoon. And overnight Monday, that icing threat continues to work on in, and could definitely be a problem throughout the overnight hours here through Illinois, Indiana, southern Michigan at this point, and even potentially into northern Ohio overnight Monday into our Tuesday. This is about midnight on Monday. Again, look at this area of kind of some icing showing up, and I'll mention our other models show a little bit of a different solution. The high-resolution rapid refresh shows much more of an ice storm here than this model for areas kind of further inland, but overall, our model guidance is a little closer to the NAM here, and the National Weather Service has yet to kind of latch onto that high-resolution rapid refresh idea. So I'm going to show you the NAM here, which I think is a little bit more of a realistic solution. But again, just know this could overperform. It's not out of the question. We see a little bit more ice than is depicted here. But no matter what, again, the good news is that warm air not far behind and should work in within 12 to 24 hours after the onset of ice. Now, this is waking up Tuesday morning here, and you'll notice, again, now that rain ice line working all the way up through Chicago, raining in Chicago, through all of Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, and even into southern Iowa, who hasn't seen rain in forever and has just been stuck in the snow. Could see some rain here Tuesday. And going into Tuesday afternoon, this wave of precipitation moves far enough north that we've got enough cold air left over here through central Michigan, up into New York, and back through southern Wisconsin. We could see a quick band of snow, not out of the question, through, again, much of Tuesday afternoon, before eventually that area of snow and energy in the atmosphere, if you will, kind of begins to work on through New England. We could get a little bit of a wintry event there overnight Tuesday into Wednesday through New York State, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, where we still have enough cold air left over that we could pick up a quick couple inches of snow there throughout the overnight Tuesday and even into our early Wednesday. But notice what's happening back down towards the south and west at this point in time. Another storm system cranking up. And this one could even bring some severe weather here for our overnight Tuesday and into Wednesday. You'll notice here definitely a kind of impressive area of some storms here showing up through Louisiana, Texas, and Arkansas during this time frame. Let's take a look at some of these ice totals. Again, this is from our latest blend of models. It could be a little more than this. I definitely think is not out of the question, but overall, kind of the average of all of our models put together shows a big area of ice here through eastern and central Oklahoma, northern Texas, back through northwestern Arkansas and into the St. Louis area, where a tenth of an inch to 2/10 of an inch of ice is not out of the question, but widespread about a tenth of an inch, I think, is going to be kind of the most common total we see here in the ice department before all is said and done. And as we move this further up towards the Midwest here, again, another band of ice possible here, kind of through the heart of Illinois, through northern Indiana, southern Michigan, and again, even northern Ohio could see some ice here. Some of our models, again, showing more than this through the Ohio area. But just know, right now, the most likely scenario is a glaze to a tenth of an inch there, again, kind of in the northern half of the state. But the biggest impacts in this part of the country, again, right through the heart of Illinois here, where a tenth of an inch to 2/10 of an inch of ice, isolated spots even seeing a quarter of an inch of ice, not out of the question. And again, just to remind you, anytime you get more than a tenth of an inch, that's when things kind of really go downhill. That's when travel becomes difficult, power outages become more likely. Once you hit a quarter of an inch, that's whenever you get more towards that crippling ice storm kind of criteria, just meaning your travel's basically impossible and more widespread power outages will become likely. But this, I think, about a tenth of an inch to that quarter of an inch, so kind of between those two thresholds, is going to be the most likely scenario here with some of those ice totals. Now, as for snowfall, again, not a lot here, but enough worth mentioning. I think through central and northern Michigan, southern Wisconsin here, could see a couple inches of snow out of this here for our Tuesday before all is said and done. Again, not a lot, but enough, definitely worth mentioning. And those totals continue back into the northeast, where we could see a quick inch or two of snow, specifically, I think, into upstate New York here, with lower totals back towards Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, closer to an inch for you folks before that snow ends on Monday afternoon. Excuse me, Wednesday afternoon, not Monday afternoon. So let's kind of talk about now the rest of the week here. Again, that's kind of going through this Tuesday, Wednesday. Well, what about after that? Kind of picking up where we left off. Again, we've got that piece of snow up into the northeast like we were talking about, but back towards the central part of the country, another storm system getting its act together, as well as another storm working on through the PNW there through our Wednesday. So let's go ahead and move this ahead into time a little bit. This is Wednesday afternoon you're seeing here. Again, another vigorous storm system through the Pacific with mountain snow and valley and coastal rain. Also, another pretty big time storm system working through the Mississippi River Valley, where we could see a bit of a severe weather threat here through the Gulf Coast. Not out of the question. We'll be watching that. But overall, just some good old-fashioned rain through the Ohio and Tennessee River Valley throughout the day Wednesday. And that continues here into our Thursday afternoon. That wave of precipitation continuing to work on through. And this will continue for a while. We're going to see rounds of rain here, I think, throughout the Wednesday through Thursday morning here into Thursday afternoon, even thunderstorms down into the southeast, not out of the question. And that rain just continues to work on through, even through our Friday afternoon here, when it looks like we'll get a little bit of a lull for a second here, but then another storm system works on through for our weekend here, going into Saturday, working on through, again, the southeast and eventually into the northeast. And this one, we'll have to watch for some snow potential. Not out of the question here. I think by the time we get into this coming weekend, it won't be cold by any means, but we'll be back closer to average along the East Coast. And we could see, maybe some snow break out here into the Ohio River Valley or Northeast with that storm. But right now, again, still just looks very warm for most folks as this very warm air continues to flood in. And, likely hangs around here at least through the end of January. Now, another thing we are concerned about here are rainfall totals. We could see half a foot of rain, not out of the question here, through much of Louisiana, down into Mississippi, Texas, and Arkansas here, I think, are going to be the real winners in the rain department here. And again, this is enough that we could see flooding potential even up through the southern Appalachia chain into Georgia and the Carolinas. Could see some flooding, specifically the western Carolinas here. And even down through the Ohio River Valley. A lot of rain on the way here throughout the next 7 days here, depicted by this map. Now, the other thing I'm sure a lot of you are curious about is temperatures. Well, again, this is this afternoon, well below average temperatures through much of the country, but here we go. Monday afternoon, a lot closer to average for most folks. Tuesday afternoon, now quite above average for a big section of the country. Wednesday afternoon, well above average, and then Thursday afternoon, I think will probably be the peak this above average weather. And you'll notice a lot of places here getting potentially 20 degrees above what they should be this time of year through Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Kentucky, down into Tennessee, and even into the Carolinas. Very warm air taking over. And that should last into this coming weekend before potentially to start February. We'll have to watch maybe a little bit of colder air tries to once again work on in. But again, widespread above average temperatures throughout just about all of this week and maybe even going into the week after. So exactly how warm is about 10 to 20 degrees above average? Well, this is straight from the National Weather Service. These are high temperature forecasts for this coming Thursday, and you'll notice we're getting well into the 70s through the southeast. Columbia, South Carolina, Charleston, Macon, Montgomery, Jackson could pass that 70-degree mark. In fact, some folks might get close to 80, especially down into the Florida Peninsula, getting well into the 50s through the Ohio River Valley, high temperatures into the 40s and 50s through the Northeast. And we're even getting up into a balmy 35 degrees through much of, Iowa, Minnesota, and Nebraska there, which again is very different than the high temperatures that were in the negatives here through the past week. So this is going to be a big 30 to 40, in some spots even 50-degree kind of swing in high and low temperatures, specifically high temperatures though, really, through much of the country here. And again, this should really be the peak of it on Thursday afternoon, but likely will last even into the weekend for a lot of folks, specifically in the southeast. All right. Again, a lot going on out there. We've got ice to worry about. We've got some flooding to worry about, maybe even some thunderstorms, severe weather, and a lot of mountain snow and valley rain out west. So a very active pattern here to end out January, even if it is a little bit different than the colder pattern that we had earlier in the month. With that said, though, again, I appreciate y'all watching. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend here and a great start to your week, and I'll see you all tomorrow.